Hafa Guam. I'm Adriana Cotero, and I am joined with Guam Department of Education Superintendent Jon Fernandez. Hi, Jon. First and foremost, congratulations are in order as you just received your performance evaluation. There was a press conference earlier this morning, and we were able to announce that. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you for the congratulations. So, no, we were very glad to get to the evaluation because we were planning to do it earlier, before COVID-19. But then when COVID-19 hit, the board wanted to just delay it. But we were able to adjust and get it done. No matter what the situation was. The board has a responsibility to do this every year, so that they didn't want to push it back. So glad we could get it done in the middle of the summer and then turn our full attention to getting schools back open. Exactly.
So just going off that performance evaluation, a score that, this evaluation happens annually, and you have, I believe it was a 4.9, right, score. So still, I think a little bit of room for improvement is what you mentioned in the press conference, and you said there was a few things that you wanted to focus on. So if you could just highlight on what those things are in this coming year that you want to focus on.
Well, we have such a large department. We're 40% of the government in terms of our budget. We've got about 2,500 employees, but if you count all the temporary, limited term employees, we can go up to about 4,000, and then again around 29,000, 30,000 students on any given year. So there's always room for improvement in terms of things that can always be fixed or made more efficient, made more productive. But on the whole, the way I look at the evaluation is really getting the board's view on how we're doing as a department. Are we moving in the right direction? Are we addressing the issues that matter most to our families and students? And if they believe that we are, then that strong endorsement with a good rating, a good evaluation, will just gives us that momentum to keep moving ahead. And I really want our employees to kind of take note of that, because we do a lot of hard work. And then especially in times of crisis, that we're working extra hard. We're dealing with uncertainty, anxiety. Parents, members of the community are very, look to us for some guidance and direction. And so I just want to say to all of our employees, all of our leaders within the department, that this is a good sign that we should continue to work hard, and the benefits will come for our families and students.
Just going off of that, you said in times of crisis, emergencies, something that was noted that during the performance evaluation was that you were responding this year to dengue and now also COVID-19. So if you could just highlight on what that's been like for you being, the leader of this agency during these times of emergency.
Well, I think the thing is, not just the size of our agency and the number of kids and families that we're responsible for. That in and of itself gives you a lot of responsibility. But I think that, when times of crisis, when people are not sure especially about their safety or their well-being, it's really important from a leadership standpoint to really communicate, to be candid with straightforward with your audience, to let them know the realities of the situation, but also give them a sense of hope and direction that you can get things done, and really try to guide, all the, not just your stakeholders, but guide your team towards addressing all those issues that are needed to fix the situation or get through the situation. So I would, in the COVID-19 situation, communication has been the real strength of our organization, and really needed for us to make the hard decisions. So that's why you see us spending time at night talking to parents, reaching out to the mayors, to the Chamber of Commerce, to our teachers, all of the staff. All those things that we do really takes up a lot of time. But I think that it's been one of the pillars of our that strong communication and outreach, and always being willing to go out into the community to get the hard questions, get the criticism, but then turn it around and start working on solutions, and let them see that you're there at the front, you're there to work with everybody, and that you're always accessible, especially during times of crisis.
Okay, so let's segue into the current situation then with COVID-19. We know that the board met yesterday as well, and I believe that discussions were underway on what the actual official school start date will be. We've heard that it could have been August 15th, and then there was word about August 17th. And then I think the most recent communication that I received was that the first week is going to be a training period, for faculty and staff, and then the following week will be for students to come back onto campus. Is that still the plan, and are there any dates that have been determined?
Yeah, so last night the board did take a vote, and they amended the calendar relative to the start of classes. So the school year still begins on August 7th. That's for teachers to report. From August 7th to August, I believe August 13th, those first 5 days of the school year will be dedicated to training for our teachers and our staff relative to all the things that have changed with regard to COVID-19 and reopening schools. So that'll include, training on our safety procedures, ensuring that teachers and staff understand our procedures, our protocols, our reporting requirements. Focus on distance learning. Now that we know which students want to stay home, which students will be online, which students will be at school, really kind of help reinforce the organization of our efforts, as well as give people some support, our teachers some support on the models, the platforms for online learning, and so forth. So it'll be a chance to really kind of get everybody reoriented, trained up as much as we can in those first few days before we receive the first student. And that first day of classes is August 17th. So those are essentially the major changes in the calendar. That gives our students, a few extra days before they have to report to class or before classes begin. But the most important part was, let's just make sure that when teachers come back to school, when staff report, that we're having a conversation about safety first, and then really supporting the teaching and learning challenges and opportunities during this pandemic situation.
So then August 17th will be the start date. That's the day that students that are opting for that third module, which is to do a hybrid between distance learning and also on campus, will be stepping foot on to the school grounds.
That'll be the first day for students to report to school who are choosing the face-to-face option, and it'll also be the official start of classes for all students. So that's the official calendar date.
Okay, so with that, the August 17th date, then can you give us some of the different safety protocols and other, the new norm that might be taking place?
Well, we're really working on making sure that it gets out to our parents, and when they come to school, our plan is to indefinitely have temperature checks before entering onto campus. We're limiting the number of visitors that come on campus so that we can really maintain control of who's accessing the facility. We are working to, at each school it'll look slightly different, but working to ensure the safe passage of students through the facility, trying to prevent, to maintain social distancing, trying to avoid gatherings of students too close to each other. Face masks will be required throughout the day, and there will be plexiglass installed, especially in areas of high traffic, and also additional hand washing stations and so forth. So when we'll get that, we're getting that information out to our parents, but definitely want the parents to know that we're following CDC guidelines and going either meeting the guideline or going beyond it to ensure the safety of our students during this first phase of reopening. And so we look forward to spending the first weeks just reinforcing that hygiene, the practices for hand washing, to be able to make sure that we're dealing with parents and students about what to do when they have symptoms, and just continue to just reinforce good practices. So that'll be a lot of our effort. That's the new normal, making sure we put safety first, and then we can focus in on the teaching and learning.
So a few of the finer details I think you guys were still working out was busing and also lunches. Is there any updates as far as that? And for those that will be doing the distance learning, whether it be online or with the hard copy, how will they be receiving their lunches, their school meals?
So the school meals is not yet worked out, but with regard to buses, we expect by early next week to have more of a final, more final language to provide to our stakeholders regarding the bus safety tips. So bus safety, what we're really working on is just confirmation about the distancing on the bus and the number of students that will be able to get on each bus. That's going to help us plan out and make sure that there are a sufficient number of buses serving all the routes. But it'll also make sure that we communicate to our parents about what is or is not happening on the buses. So for instance, I think we were asked and we responded that we're not doing temperature checks before students get on the bus, but we do require face masks. We're working with DPW to ensure that they may have extra face masks, and just in case a child forgets or loses his or her face mask. We're looking at having hand sanitizers on the buses as well. And then of course the distancing so that kids are not, crowded into the seats. So it looks like I think the potential is to have every seat full, but in an alternating pattern with regard to where students are able to sit to allow for enough distance between the passengers.
And then with lunches, you said that's still being worked out. Is there
Yeah,
any, will students be eating in the cafeteria though? Those that will be face-to-face learning?
we are looking at the cafeterias as the option. The biggest issue for us is maintaining social distancing in the cafeteria, which we can do in many cases. For those cafeterias that are too small, those schools are basically looking at multiple lunch periods versus one lunch period. So that'll help them enable them to have the students in the cafeteria, but again with enough physical distance to ensure their safety. So
And
that's really the decision that many of the schools have been opting for.
And last week, whenever we had checked in, you mentioned that it's about 65% of students that are opting for the at-home learning. Is that still the same, or has it gone up or down at all?
We have about 2,000 additional, I believe 2,000 additional responses, and the percentages are similar. I mean, I think it's now like 64, 36% as a split, but it's still around the same 65, 35 that we saw last time. So because we have about 19,000 responses, all the additional responses are unlikely to really shift those numbers. But again, we're right now we're at about 64, 36. So it's similar to what we discussed last time.
Okay, and I know you only had about 20 minutes with us, so I just want to touch on a few other topics, but is there anything else you want to say as far as the reopening of the school year?
Well, we're just working really hard to make sure we tie up all the loose ends relative to the opening. We're close to confirming the availability of our protective equipment that will be needed before we can open up. So those are the face masks, cleaning supplies, hand sanitizers, and so forth. Those are undergoing our procurement process, but we expect today or tomorrow to really try to confirm whether we're able to secure the volume of supplies that are needed. So that was a really critical part. I think we're working through the school lunch issue. So that's something that we need to wrap up and clarify for the community. But already some of our attention is already starting to shift towards what happens during the during the midst of the school year. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the opening plans are starting to solidify, and the schools are working at their level to make it happen. Now we're starting to talk about things like what happens in the middle of a school year with regard to our school nurses, attendance officers, our social workers in the event of a second surge of cases. It's starting to plan and map out those contingencies, working with the governor's office and public health. So some of us are kind of looking ahead now to maintaining operations. What happens after the first few successful weeks? What will happen? What scenarios do we need to prepare for? So as we get that information, we will continue to include that in what we disseminate to our community.
And I believe in an interview I had with Deputy Superintendent Joe Sanchez, he had mentioned that in the case also if there's a vaccine that's just saying if there is a vaccine, then ideally it would be to get students all back onto campus.
Yes, I mean, we definitely want all of our students to be able to come back to campus. I mean, we like the possibilities and potential of online learning, but we believe that has to work hand in hand with face-to-face instruction and not as a separate type of instruction. So we do hope to learn a lot from what we're going through right now as we deliver 3 different models of learning. But ultimately, we want the community to be safe, the public health situation to improve, and that will allow us to get more kids back so they can interact directly with their teachers and each other. So that is ultimately the goal and direction that we hope to go.
And just going off of that, I think something you had mentioned that was under discussions as well was whether or not teachers will, solely be part of online or if they'll have to learn all 3 models. Has that been decided yet?
Well, as we've discussed with our teachers, we're hoping that we don't believe that teachers should be teaching all 3 models because it's just going to be too difficult for them to be able to manage. So a lot of what's happening right now continues to be the schools receiving their registration forms and organizing themselves to support those models of learning depending on the numbers who want online instruction versus hard copy or versus face-to-face. So in our middle school, you'll have, what really helps us is that we have teams of teachers who are working with their specific students. That's easier for them to organize. At the elementary level, every grade level teacher, teaches the same class, but different subjects throughout the day. So at the school level, they're going to have to really do a lot of the details and logistical work and scheduling work at that level. But what we've guided them is basically to try not to overwhelm and overburden the teachers, as we go through this next period of weeks and months under this new situation.
Okay, and if we could, just switching gears now, can we get an update on the TFEP program and the food distribution?
So right now we have about a couple weeks scheduled. So this Thursday and the following Thursday are the last two scheduled community distributions where we're looking at doing both the Tizen and Dedido distribution sites. So that's very important for us to try to continue to do that. Beyond that, we're trying to confirm whether we can modify that distribution program and work more closely with the mayors to push the commodities out almost at a village level, which will improve our ability to reach those who are truly in need of the food support. So we are meeting with the Mayor's Council on August 5th to go over the program, what the accountability requirements are, to determine whether the mayors are willing and able to take a larger role in the food distribution. That'll allow us, my staff, my limited staff, to go back to the operations of the PD warehouse. And then on the days where distribution is happening, the mayors can take the major responsibility for pushing out the food, and our team can just go around doing compliance checks and monitoring to make sure that all the paperwork that needs to be associated with it is being completed and submitted. So that's what we're working on. I just think long term, we don't want to pull Department of Public Works or Guam Police Department away from their core functions, on these days. So we did want to shift back to our normal operation. But because we recognize that at least through December, that there may be continued efforts on the federal government side to push more commodities to the states and territories, and because we know that there is still a strong demand on island, we're just looking at different ways to improve getting those commodities to the families that are in need. And we think our mayors can play a big part in it, not just in distributing, but knowing which families don't have access to transportation, which families have not been able to take advantage of the program earlier, and really hit those pockets of need that are harder to do when you're doing it the current way that we're handling it.
Can we expect any more collaboration with the Mayor's Council of Guam? Because I know that at a recent meeting, GDOE was there as well, and you guys were talking about having resource centers within the villages for students to go utilize Wi-Fi that may not have it at home or internet access at all.
Yeah, so the mayors have been very, very good partners, for the most part, especially in times of emergency when there's typhoons and so forth. The mayors always have their responsibilities, but we're close by them because we're in their villages, at their shelters and so forth. So in this situation, it's proven to be the same. I think our mayors have really come out to support our grab and go school lunch, school meal distributions. They've been helping us with the food commodities distribution in terms of helping get food to those who may need it, but may not be able to get to the sites. So we're looking on building around that. Our biggest concern, of course, is that with any federally funded program, we need all the relevant documentation to be completed and submitted so we can account for the federal resources. But other than that, we do believe our mayors are equipped and have the information needed to get the food to the right families who are in need of that support. So I think there's partnership there. Around the technology, same issue. We do hope to partner around technology. Right now, we're really going over, we issued a request for information to our internet service providers, which their responses came in about a week ago. And now we're sitting down with them one by one to really flesh out the possible strategies and services that can be provided to fill in the gap in internet access in the villages. So based on their input, we hope to be able to decide a strategy that will enable us to wire up and to make computers available at our public facilities, including mayor's offices and senior centers and other assets that are out there at the village level. So that'll, I think, there's funding available to in the governor's office through the ESF funds that were given, the Education Stabilization Funds. So the lieutenant governor has been working with us on that. And if they can take care of the villages, then we can focus on shoring up our school facilities and the equipment for children. We are working with UOG and GCC as well on the internet access in the village issue. So we're hoping that whatever strategy comes out will not just benefit DOE, but also our GCC and UOG students.
Okay, well, I know we're reaching our time, so I do appreciate you taking the time to speak with me on a weekly basis. And again, congratulations on your performance evaluation, and thank you, Jon.
All right, thank you, Adriana, and have a good day. Be safe.
Thank you, and thank you all for watching. I think one of the biggest takeaways there was that yesterday during the board meeting, they amended the calendar. So August 7th to the 13th will be a training period for faculty and staff. And then the official school start date is August 17th. I'm Adriana Cotero. Thank you all.